Good morning and welcome to our weekly broadcast this Thursday morning. I am your host, Dal Rye. I'm the Investor Portfolio Manager for LEOcrowdfunding, our equity crowdfunding platform. Today, our co-host, John Corrie from Property Fortress. Hello, John.
Good day.
I believe that you've been traveling from the States today.
Yeah, actually, I'm in London today. The background probably looks similar, but camera angle might be a little different. And just landed, literally unplugged, got plugged in after unpacking real quick and ready to go.
Great, great. And we also have our guest speaker, our very own David Johnstone from LEOcrowdfunding. Hello, David. Good morning.
Good morning, Dal. Good morning, John. That's a little bit strange, Dal, to be kind of sitting here in the guest seat today, and you're in the hot seat as the host. So enjoy, and you've done a great job kicking it off. So I'll let you tear away.
Thank you. Welcome to everyone, and thank you for attending. Today, we're just going to go through an overview of the markets. We'll have some conversations with David, our special guest for the day, on overall topics, and go through educational tips. And finally, we'll go through our project focus. So just very briefly, John, if you could just introduce yourself to the attendees.
Okay, John Corrie, co-host of this weekly broadcast, long-term property investor, technology guy from Silicon Valley, then came across London, so continued with my tech career in banking while continuing to invest in property, picking up UK. These days, I'm the classic sort of angel passive investor in other people's projects besides the portfolio that I established some time ago. And I'm happy to put money in some of the crowdfunding deals when they make sense.
That's great. Thank you, John. Certainly a lot of experience there from John. So just to kick things off, before I do, just wanted to go through some housekeeping. Just to mention, this is not, we're not offering advice on this broadcast. This is for information purposes only. This is recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel. Also, you have the opportunity to ask any questions via the broadcast link below. So feel free to do so, and we'll endeavour to answer those as best as we possibly can. So, property market, brief overview of today's property marketplace, current trends, and what's in the news. So we did touch upon this a couple of months ago, and this is an article from the Daily Telegraph regarding cladding crisis. So just to add a bit of context for those viewers that may not know already, the cladding crisis, also known as the cladding scandal, is an ongoing social crisis that followed the Glen Tower fire in 2017 and Bolton Cube fire in 2019. After safety inspections on the high block revealed that not just dangerous cladding, but other fire safety concerns such as defects in insulation, flammable balconies, and missing fire breaks. As a result, leaseholders unable to now sell their flats. John, do you just want to comment on this? Have you had a chance to read the article?
Well, I'm actually sitting in a flat that is suffering from all the problems you just listed. Unable to sell, unable to refinance, balconies need to be reconstructed, cladding underneath the rendering needs to be taken off, walking watch at, there's say 100 units in the building, and it's about £1,000 a month times 100 units for the walking watch. Now that just ended after an upgrade of the alarm system, and then they discovered a smoke ventilation issue. So then they had to bring the walking watch back. And as everybody said, well, if the alarms work, why do we need a walking watch? Oh, well, they can run up to the floors and do whatever. So it's been, quite a little nightmare, and it's affecting pretty much across the whole of the UK. It has to do with anything built that's multi-story, though there's some breaks at 12 meters and other things, 6 stories. And
John, you still there? Sorry. I think John might be having some technical issues there. There we are. I think you're back, John. Sorry, we just missed that last bit.
I actually just stopped, but yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, this is not a quick fix. It's been going on for quite some time now, and it's hard to see where this is going to end up. So a lot of leaseholders indeed experiencing issues around that. David, have we got you there? Not sure if David's there. There we are. David, do you want to add to that at all?
No, that's fine. I'm happy to let John put his experience before he's in there at the minute. So
great,
no problem.
stuff.
All good.
Great stuff. So we started.
I mean, I'm literally sitting about 8 feet from some wood on the balcony that needs replacing. I can see it out the glass.
Firsthand.
You've got much more experience of that than I have, and sort of all our green fields over here tend to have too many massive tower blocks and apartment blocks in Northern Ireland. So I'll leave it to the experts on that one.
Indeed. So we started this Ask John for Education in this season. So feel free to ask John in the Q&A section as well. But we have a question for a potential investor for this week. I have spent nearly 2 years studying property investment. Now I am building a power team, including private funders. Am I ready to buy my first property? Are they ready, John?
So I don't know them, and I can't really say whether they are ready. But if they have spent 2 years studying, I would say they're past ready. That doesn't mean they should try just anything. My general advice is start with something that you're reasonably comfortable with. So if you grew up in a 3-bedroom house, then maybe 3-bedroom houses make sense, and you can figure out how they should function or how they should work. If you're going to buy something, probably focus in your local area. I wouldn't be too adventurous. At the same time, if you've gotten very deep in a bunch of courses, some people do that, and you learned all about a particular strategy, then it's time to probably implement that strategy. Just again, when you're starting out, you're going to bump into things you didn't expect. That's perfectly fine. You'll never go perfectly well. There's always going to be bumps along the road. Your job is to adapt. Your job is to reach out and ask other people. Now, flip that around a little. It's a big sort of step function when you go from I don't have a property or I don't have an investment property to my first purchase. And I would say if you don't own your own residence, consider buying one. It's sometimes easier to manage it when you're just the owner, not an owner with tenants. And then look at buying a rental property, or as an alternative that's much more sort of safe. Put £100 into someone else's deal through a crowdfunding platform. You can become a property owner. You can become someone on the ladder. You can get over some of those emotional hurdles. You're almost renting the attention of the other person that knows what they're doing. Let them get on with it. Let them sort of run the project, and you're along for the ride. So you can limit your exposure. If you do that, you're not signing for a large loan. You're not sort of taking on personal liability for the whole project. So at £100, £1,000, whatever that basic item is, and it's cheaper than buying more courses. So I don't want you to just waste your money, but at the same time, if you're thinking of doing another course and it's £1,000, you can invest in 10 separate deals. Where are you going to learn more? And at the end of that course, you'll have some information. At the end of those 10 deals, you have some information, but you actually might make a positive return across those 10 deals. So it's a lot easier to get started. Analysis paralysis is a bad thing. Too many courses is a bad thing. Some things you will never learn until you get started because you just don't have the sensitivity until you're sort of in the deep end. So I would say you're way past ready if you've been studying for 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Some very valid points there, John. So yeah, and if anyone again wants to reach out to John or David, we'll have the contact details a little bit later on in the slide. Thank you, John. And we have our very own David Johnstone, so a very young David here, doing some important pointing.
And what do you mean young? What do you mean young, Dal? That was last year.
Questionable. It may well be. So, David, lessons from the last 20 years in property investment. Very, very wise words that you may want to share with our audience today.
Yes, thank you very much, Dal, and hello to everyone who's joined the broadcast today. As I said, it's slightly strange sitting in the guest seat today. I'm going to be quizzed by Dal and John rather than me usually asking the questions and trying to look under the lid of people's businesses and their experiences. So yeah, that photograph was a few years ago, Dal. It definitely wasn't last year. But yeah, I suppose we haven't learned how to reverse the aging process yet. So it is what it is. So yeah, by way of introduction then, we've obviously interviewed so many people over the last 18 months, and it was actually Brenda said, well, you've never done it. There's probably people don't really know your full background, and that actually is probably true. So let me very quickly run you through my varied experience in property. So I come from an advertising and marketing background. Played semi-professional level of football in Northern Ireland. Still a big passion of mine, involved in coaching with the youth over here at a semi-professional level. Was also a British Army officer, a reserve officer. I did a tour of Iraq in 2004, so I have that experience as well. But in terms of property, got involved in 2000, and that makes it just over 20 years. So started off in buy-to-let in the UK. Was involved in buying and selling about 100 houses. And myself and my wife have a small portfolio currently. I then moved to overseas after the credit crunch and was marketing overseas investment properties, second home properties. Then was involved in setting up a global property agent network. This was primarily in Europe and in Southeast Asia, although we did have an agent over in Brazil, and spent a number of years going around meeting those agents and marketing UK stock. Then was involved in some high-end portfolio building for private clients, which was great fun, and we'll perhaps mention that later. And now I have landed on equity property crowdfunding, Dal. So that's my journey to date.
Great, thank you, David. And I think the question that everyone's asking is, why equity crowdfunding?
Actually, I want to tie up one thing. So Brenda said you haven't been interviewed, and then you said you and your wife. Let's tie those together.
So Brenda is my wife. Yeah, she also works in the business as well, very valuable part of the business. And yeah, she comes from a housing management background, so she worked full time for what was the Royal British Legion Housing Association at the time. So she has that experience, and yeah, we did actually also run a property management business, a lettings and management business for about 2 years, managed about 70 properties. So that was fun. But yeah, Brenda's my wife.
Thanks.
Thank you, David. Yeah, just what everyone's asking, as I was saying, the why equity property crowdfunding, what led you onto the kind of the platform?
Yeah, really good question. And it was a very clear decision I made back about 4.5 years or so ago to move into the regulated space. And probably some of the lessons learned that we'll talk about in a few minutes contributed significantly to that decision to move into this space. Partly it was, I wanted a business model that let me bring all my experience to the table, but also my contacts. Obviously, you can see from the journey I've had, I've got a lot of contacts, not just here in the UK, but literally throughout Southeast Asia, Europe, South America, obviously across in North America. And I wanted something that through time that I could bring all those contacts into. But I also wanted regulation, Dal. I wanted something that had compliance, had longevity. And a big part of that was being involved in some deals that didn't deliver. And I had a number of investment clients, one who actually was a friend of my father's, and they actually invested money in a deal, and it didn't succeed. And that money is currently tied up in a deal that probably won't go forward anytime soon. That was painful. and I didn't like the fact that people were making decisions perhaps based on me and our friendship. And I wanted them to be in an environment where there was a compliance umbrella, and they would make the decisions for themselves, but that if you like, the environment was not sort of out there where anything can happen. You have to tick the boxes in property crowdfunding. There's scrutiny, there's financial motions approval, and I'm very comfortable in that environment.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, David. That's certainly given the audience a bit of intel and around your background. Sorry, I'm just... So you've obviously traveled quite a bit, David. So out of all the places that you've been, anywhere that stood out for you, I guess from a business point of view, a property or a personal point of view?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer, because I've been fortunate enough, I think in my life altogether, I've been in about 57 countries. Between when I was younger, my parents were missionaries out in Papua New Guinea near Australia. And then with the military, obviously, I've done a lot of traveling, and then through work. Always enjoyed Canada. Enjoyed doing business in Canada as a location. Certainly, the Brazil is a very interesting market. Guadeloupe was nice. Been there for a couple of days doing some workshops on property. But probably of all the countries that I enjoyed the most was probably Singapore. They have a very sort of interesting business mindset. Very professional, very focused, and I've just always found it a very easy place to do business. When you sit across the table from someone in Singapore and you do your negotiations and your discussions, it's just quite straightforward. Everyone's, I think, very upfront. There's other cultures where it's just not as simple as that. There's time to build trust, and you're just not sure if you're really getting the full story from the person on the other side of the table. But yeah, it's I've enjoyed cultures. I think, Dal, one thing is that it teaches that people are human, no matter where they come from, their background and cultures and all of that. It's the common denominator is, no matter where you live in the world, you've probably got the same fears, the same needs, same aspirations, look after your family, have a retirement, and the same ethos of integrity and things like that, exist in every culture. So I think I've enjoyed being a citizen of the world, as opposed to, as much as I'm proud of where I come from, that's been a good experience. Great.
John, if I could just bring you in on this as well. I know that you've traveled a bit. If I can ask you the same question, what stood out? Where would you like to settle? Or, is it the States that you see yourself kind of being there for kind of the rest of your life?
So settled's an interesting question, and I've always had for a very long time, at least, this view of having multiple homes. I would say with COVID and some of the extra travel hassle, it makes it slightly less attractive. And as you get older, you don't really have the energy to grind through long haul red eyes. But having just come off one, I just flew in from Philadelphia. Like David, I think it's partially the experience of living in or experiencing directly or somehow sampling local cultures. Now, London's particularly attractive because a lot of people come through London, but it's fun to go to these other places and actually see the authentic version of the culture rather than just the snippet you'd get in London. My ideal, and COVID's been a blessing that way, is to do more work online and to come together for social reasons, come together for building relationships, but do it as more events driven, or where you're going to go deep and maybe do a 3 or 4 day meeting or something, and then be able to spend a lot of your time where you want to be. And personally, that could be Colorado, that could be Hawaii, that could be London, and the ability to have sort of the virtual background so that I could be in London, or yesterday it looked like that too. Lighting was like a little different, but other than that, it's exactly the same. So I do like this ability to change cultures and move around.
Absolutely, absolutely.
By the way, just for property investing, that's a hyper local thing. I don't advocate people investing everywhere. I think people should stick to their home country, maybe a second country where they tend to have a lot of bills, spend a lot of time. But as an investment decision, earn your money in your primary currency and then use hotel rooms and other things when you go visit other places.
Yeah, no, valid point there, John. So David, lessons learnt. So over your 20 years, you've obviously picked up a few things. So we'd like to hear a little bit more kind of what your experiences have led to and from an educational point.
Yeah, okay. Let me just pick up on John's last comment there, because I disagree with him slightly. Because, and I've had this when I've dealt with overseas property a lot. So I agree, one strategy is maybe go local where you know it. But I've also always held the view that property fundamentals exist independent of where people live. So just because I don't live in a market doesn't mean that the fundamentals on a particular property deal isn't a good, solid investment opportunity. It just happens not to be where I live. So depending on strategy, but I see nothing wrong with the strategy that involves other markets, providing you do your due diligence. And just because you don't live somewhere doesn't mean it's not a good investment. That's the way I've looked at it. So in terms of education, this is a great starting point because I've certainly been someone that's like passionately pursued like knowledge, just couldn't get enough in the early days of people who had built large buy-to-let portfolios. How did they do it? What mistakes did they make? And would ask, meet people for a cup of coffee or, watch DVDs of people in those days. It wasn't the same YouTube and things like that existed back in 2000. So yeah, Dal, education I think is massive. And one of the big advantages today is that there's so much education you can access online. And as John said, COVID's probably driven more people both to impart their knowledge online. So there's no excuse in 2021, for someone not getting educated in the world of property investment.
Great. Thank you, David. And sticking to your set strategy, I think that was an interesting one. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, one of my big bugbears in sort of property is people who in the early days are always looking for the shiny object. So they go on a property course and the course is maybe about something, maybe about commercial, or it might be, a certain type of buy-to-let strategy, or it might be, service accommodation. And people who are by definition still amateurs at the game, they're still cutting their teeth, maybe having bought their first property. I've met people, Dal, who have never bought a property and they've done like 4 or 5 courses, spent 10, 15, 20,000 pounds on like in-depth, like high-level strategies. And it's like, you can't do them all. You got to find the 1 or 2 strategies that suit you and work for you and focus on those and be really clear that this is what you're doing. Don't bump into someone who made money a different strategy and go off into that strategy. That property is unforgiving. If you get involved in areas that you're not, clued up in, you can get burnt in property. So when I say set your strategy, be focused on the area and become an expert in your area. Don't try and do it all. Absolutely,
and that leads into read the small print in the contracts.
Yeah, I put that in. The picture up above there is me standing in Cape Verde on what I had planned to be our sort of family holiday home. We'd sold some buy-to-let property just right before the crash in about 2006. Did very well, and I loved Cape Verde. I was marketing property out there, great climate. So we put well over 100,000 sterling, which was 50% of this property. The other 50% was supposed to come from a mortgage, but of course, 08-09 credit crunch. No one would give a mortgage out in Cape Verde, but the contract was you owed the rest of the money. So we as a wider family lost over 100,000 pounds sterling in that deal. Yeah, what a lesson to learn. What an expensive lesson to learn. So one reason why I'm very fixated with our shareholder agreements on the platform, that we have to make sure they're right, and you got to read the small print, and I always encourage every investor, take time to read contracts, because at the end of the day, that's what you have when it comes to a dispute down the line. So that was painful. The other picture was the Burj Khalifa. I was involved in the purchase there. We probably rushed in too quick to it. If a proper decision wasn't made at board level of the company I was involved in, and in the end they decided not to go ahead with it. And after 3 trips out there, again there was around about, again from memory, about 150,000 euros of a deposit was lost, just because there was people didn't understand where they were, and jumped into something that they hadn't thought through. So there are certainly lessons I've learned when it comes to those things.
Absolutely, and listen to advice. I think you would say so. Reach out to your network. Would you agree? Yeah,
again, this is a massive one, and I suppose every individual is different, but I am the sort of person that likes to canvass opinion on sometimes, but certainly on the property in Cape Verde, my wife Brenda was like totally opposed to that, and I went ahead and did it, and yeah, £100,000 loss later. That was expensive, not listening to advice, and of course she never brings it up. Of course, she never mentions it ever since. Yeah, just every so often.
And things outside your control, I guess, as you mentioned, the Cape Verde property there, but yeah, certainly something to look out for.
Yeah, well, the Cape Verde one, Dal, you could probably argue was in my control, because I didn't read the small print of the contract, and therefore like walked into a situation where, you know, the world had changed. You couldn't get a mortgage, and I didn't have the extra 100,000. But I think outside my control, the biggest lesson of that, I think, was in Canada. Beautiful site up in a place called Lake Muskoka. I'm not sure if John's come across that. So the sort of North American Monte Carlo. It's the sort of playground of the rich and famous. All the A-list celebrities and football and basketball stars have got their private islands and cottages up about 2 hours north of Toronto. And beautiful piece of land at 5 or 6 trips over there. And we sat down with the owner, who's about an 87-year-old property developer. The whole deal was done, heads of terms signed, and the gentleman passed away. And unfortunately, the estate wasn't exactly sorted out. The sons got involved and decided they didn't want to go ahead with the contract. Heads of terms weren't robust enough to secure it, and we lost about, again, a couple of £100,000 sterling in terms of preparation. And about 6 months later, somebody else stood on deed for the land, and they've now built 48 lovely cottages up waterside in Muskoka, Dal. So yeah, it was one of those things. What do? You can't, you know, it's just, that's life. The gentleman passed away just at the wrong time for us and that situation. So I think I make that point, Dal, because you can't always control things, and no matter how good you are in business, no matter how good you are at life, you can't always control everything, and you have to accept that. And that's, again, I think, a lesson that I would learn. So yeah, that's all for me, Dal. I think that gives people a little bit of insight into my background, but also some of the lessons that I've learned.
Absolutely. I can't help but notice the DIY and decorating book there, David. You're a bit of a handyman, are you?
Well, that's perhaps a question more for Brenda and my 2 sons than me. I might think I'm good, but probably the quality of my work, Dal, might tell another story, to be fair.
So you wouldn't be doing a refurb yourself?
No. Well, I could do it. It just mightn't be very good. I think that's the problem.
That's for sure. Thank you, David, for that. So just a bit around project focus. So we are now coming to a drawdown on our Bridge Road project. Now, Bridge Road was our most recent project, successfully raised £100,000 within 48 hours. So that's now coming to drawdown and close tomorrow. Those of you who have looking to invest, or have invested rather, and haven't accepted the shareholder agreement, please do so by 5 p.m. today, and that'd be great.
So Dal, so first of all, the shareholder agreement was sent out a little bit ago, and people definitely should read these things. This is part of the point of why, particularly like the earlier question, am I ready to get started? Well, part of getting started is reading your contracts, and as David just highlighted, you don't read your contracts, it could bite you. Now, I'm suggesting people, I'm encouraging people, just because someone else read it doesn't mean you don't have to. You should read your own contract. If someone does not read it and accept it by 5 today, what happens?
If someone doesn't read them and accept the terms, they are then invested into that property, into that project. So yeah, very important that you read the shareholder agreement. If you have any questions around the shareholder agreement, feel free to reach out. You can email me on dal@leocrowdfunding.com or to the support@leocrowdfunding.com. So we would encourage you, of course, to read and reach out with any questions that you may have on that at all.
Okay, just because it maybe broke up on my side. So if you don't accept by 5 today, you're out.
I think David would probably be the best person. I think there is some room of flexibility there, but yeah, we would encourage, because we don't want to be holding up any of the other investors, and that is the main reason that we try and stick to these deadlines.
Yeah, don't be too British about it. The deadline's a deadline. The plane's going to take off. Wheels up.
Absolutely. I'll just, as you say, I'll jump in. You know, absolutely, the intention would be, if someone hasn't accepted the shareholder agreement by 5 p.m., there's definitely a high probability that they're no longer in the deal, and that we just move to close. I know that the VAT, I think, was like 94%, I think, from memory, of funds were actually already transferred. So therefore, it's well over the minimum. And therefore, yeah, the plan is absolutely to close that tomorrow. If people aren't on it and have missed it, well, then they'll just have if they have transferred funds, they'll just be returned to their e-wallet, and they can draw it down again or wait for another project. But it is important that when deadlines are set, that the people do. Now, if there's a real exceptional circumstance, then we can still fit them in, maybe, but that's the exception, not the rule. Meet the deadlines or risk not being in the project.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Those of you who've managed to have a look at our platform may have seen our Citygate project phase 1, which we were able to successfully raise 204,000, and 31 investors came on board with that particular project. We did have a few investors that have made contact with us, stating interest, that may have missed out on the previous raise. So we are opening this for a short time only, for exclusive investors, behind the curtain raise, and that will then close on the 19th of October. So this Tuesday, for those that still are interested, feel free to, again, reach out to myself, dal@leocrowdfunding.com, or david@leocrowdfunding.com with any questions. I know that I have had a few this morning, emails to action, so I will get back to you with regards to that. But yeah, please do feel free to reach out. And investment and consultancy. So John and David are there, no obligation. Please feel free to book your free 20-minute call with John or David. Those are the contact details. You have david@leocrowdfunding.com and his contact number, and then you can reach John as well through the Property Fortress website. So leading on to next week's topic. So our broadcast for next week, the topic will be the Great Reset in commercial property, and we have our very experienced guest, Dan Taylor. I believe that, David, you know Dan?
Yes, as does John. In fact, John introduced me to Dan, must be, I guess, approaching 2 years ago now. So yeah, I've met Dan on a number of occasions. Really good guy, I really like him, very experienced in the world of property, particularly in commercial property. He does a really good information session on the Great Reset, just what's happening in the world of property, and got some great stats to back up his views on things. So yeah, delighted that Dan's able to join us next week. Dal, once again, it's going to be a great, a great, very informative and very beneficial. So encourage everyone to be on next week.
Looking forward to that.
I should also say, Dal, just quickly, we've got the next 4 weeks all tied down with speakers. So we've got Alex Impey coming the week after that. We've got Mark Fernahoe down from Devon. Got again some really interesting updates on what's happening in the market down there. So we've got some really fantastic people lined up for the next number of weeks.
Looking forward to that. And that then concludes our broadcast. Anything you want to add, John and David? Otherwise, I think we've gone past our 30-minute slot.
I'm all good if everybody else is fine, and assuming there's no questions that need answering right now, we're good to go.
Yeah, no, all good for me. Just to thank you, Dal, for hosting. Done a really good job. We'll give you a virtual round of applause. Well done for that. So I can afford to take it easy some weeks and let you tear away. So that was excellent. So appreciate that, and we'll see everyone again next week as normal, 10 a.m.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Bye bye. Bye bye.